a keynote by our fellow Maureen Chiana. She'll be speaking on rewiring for power, purpose, and impact. Please welcome Maureen Chiana.
Right, hi again. Hi. I am excited to do some rewiring our brains together today. I won't bother going through the introduction because that's been done. So let's jump into something really quickly. So stay calm, put everything away, phone, just sit up, and I'm going to read out some words. And what I want you to do is to just, if you want to close your eyes and visualize the words that I'm going to read out. And then we will have a chat at the end. Bed. Rest. Awake. Tired. Dream. Weak. Night. Eat. Comfort. Sound. Slumber. Snore. Now you can open your eyes. I want you to take out a piece of paper, pen, or your phone and write as many of those words you can remember in 2 minutes, 1 minute, let's see. So write as many as you can remember. Okay. You can stop. How many of you got up to 7? You got 6? Okay. How many did you get? Oh, well done. That's good. So 7, 8? Okay, so 7 is it. 5, 4, 3? Okay, cool. How many of you had sleep on one of your words? Okay. How many of you had sleep as your top one in your top 3? Raise your hands. Okay. Look around the room and see how many hands are up. If you had 3, sleep as your top. Okay, we can put your hands down. Sleep was not one of the words I mentioned. I didn't mention sleep. I like that. I didn't mention sleep. And I like doing this exercise because it shows the power of the brain in creating stories and narratives. So this is being recorded, isn't it? So you play it back and listen. Sleep was not one. And this is interesting because the brain is so powerful. And one of the things I want you to take away today is don't believe everything your brain tells you. Don't believe everything it tells you. Ask your brain questions. That's really important. So let's get started into our talk today. So I've based it on the theme for International Women's Day, which is give to gain. So that's what I've based it on. But there's a part that we don't normally talk about, and it's this concept that you cannot consistently give leadership, value, or impact if you're not managing your thoughts effectively, especially when it matters. At those critical moments, pressure, whatever it is, making decisions, if you don't effectively manage your thoughts, manage your emotions, manage your behavior, your brain will take over like it just did now. So, when our thinking is unclear or emotions are unregulated, what you then find is that our responses become inconsistent, or you find that your responses don't actually align with what you want to actually achieve. So you might find yourself in situations where you know you want to do something, but you're not doing it, and you don't even understand why you're not doing what you want to do. And we'll talk a bit about that. Many years ago, I found myself in a situation similar to this, actually, quite at the early stage of when I went into public speaking, because my background is in pathology, trained as a biomedical scientist, worked in pathology for quite a few years, and then went into education. but started teaching at the University of Kent in Canterbury, Christ Church University. I still am a guest lecturer at University of Kent till today. And then I got bored and decided I want something different. So I left and went into IT and became a Microsoft Systems engineer. So those of you that remember Millennium, you know how we all went into MCSC back in the day. So I was a certified Microsoft Systems engineer and a Microsoft certified trainer, and did this before the Millennium. But when the Millennium came and the world did not end, IT crashed. So I then went, okay, what do I do? And I live in Kent. I live in Ashford, which is quite further in. And every time I have to do my hair, I have to come into London. So I decided, why not open a salon? So I did. I opened the first Afro hair and beauty salon in Kent. And that was in Ashford in 2002. Thank you. Thank you. So I did that. I'm not a hairdresser. I can't even braid hair to save my own life, but I do love hair. But for me, it was a business and it was a need. So I did it, but then had to depend on hairdressers. And my hairdresser was coming from London, which was a nightmare. Anyway, we did it. And after 4 years, I went, you know what? It's either I learn to become a hairdresser or I need to sell this on. So that's what I did, but sold it for a huge loss. And I was at a very low point in my life. And I said, Lord, what happened to me? How did I get here? Because when I opened the salon, because it was the first, I was covered on BBC, ITV. It was fantastic. But then it went just like that after 4 years. But that was when I started asking the question, why do we think the way we do? Because I knew I was sinking low, very, very low. And after I closed the salon, I went back into education, but into further education, into a college in Canterbury. And then a few months later, my mom passed away suddenly. My mom was my rock, my huge, huge rock. And she just passed away suddenly, and that threw me. So I was sinking, and that was when I suddenly decided, you know what? Bring this research brain, because I used to work in research. Actually, after I left pathology, I went into research. So I did research for about 3 years. So my research brain kicked back in, and I started researching the brain. So I went into neuroscience. Started researching the brain, and in the process, I discovered emotional intelligence. I'm a Christian. The more I was digging into neuroscience, the more I was seeing scripture being confirmed. You know, it was like the science was confirming scripture, and it blew me completely. Back then, I developed very bad back pain, and I said, you know what? Let's use this whole neuroscience concept and scripture and get this pain sorted. And long story, I can't go into it, but I did. I was booked in for surgery twice, never went in for surgery. Never went in for surgery till today. I was told I'll never be able to walk with heels. I wear the highest heel. So there's power in our brain, real power. So as I was telling you, when I started speaking, one of these days I got up and I looked around the room, and the faces of these surgeons, they were all consultants, were like, and I went, oh my God, I'm sure they are thinking, who is this woman? What is she doing? She doesn't know what she's talking about. My brain started spiraling, and I hesitated. And that was when it occurred to me in that moment that most times we get worried about what our brain is doing, and we stop focusing on what we need to do. So I realized something, that preparation is not the same as performance, because I had prepared. I was so prepared, but got there, looked at faces, and started creating stories in my brain and started stuttering. So I had to hold myself back and go back to myself. Maureen, you're here because you know what you're talking about. And then I decided not to look at any of them, but look through them, and started speaking. So we can know exactly what to do, like I said, but still not do it in the moment that matters. In my work with leaders, one of the things I see consistently is this concept that the brain does not rise to your intention. Listen to this. Your brain does not rise to your intention. It falls back to your most practiced thoughts and behavior. It falls back to your most practiced thought and behavior and emotional pattern. You can have the intention. The question is, what is your brain saying? That's the key. So under pressure, you don't become your best self. You become your most practiced self. Thank you. And we work hard, we put in the effort. But at the crucial, that critical time, it's your most practiced self that shows up. And I'll use this to just explain really quickly about the brain. So the frontal part of the brain, which is this prefrontal cortex, is our thinking brain. So that's where we make decisions, that's where we solve problems, and that's where we make, can visualize into the future. But one of the key parts in our brain, which is the limbic system, commonly known as the emotional brain, deep down in the brain, and that's where you have two main organs. One is the amygdala, and one is the hippocampus. The ladies in my network, we've called Amy. We call the amygdala Amy. So someone will come into a meeting and say, I had an Amy hijack today. And she starts talking about it. So the amygdala is like the scanner. So that's the survival part of the brain. So that's the brain that really helps us in terms of survival, in terms of, being able to process. It's like the scanner, the gatekeeper. What's coming into the brain? Is this a threat or is it a reward? If it's a reward, it's happy. And I'll tell you, reward for me is Panoraison. I live in Kent. So I come into St. Pancras, and there's a Starbucks there, and I think it's a Pret-a-Manger. And as you come in, the smell just comes in. And instead of Maureen going to where she needs to go, she branches in. That's my brain. And I go in there and I blame the brain. But that's the reward. It draws us to those things we like. The threat, if the emotional brain, Amy, detects that it's a threat, she will try to pull you away from it. So our brain is just there to keep us safe, to protect us. So it's doing its job. The brain doesn't like uncertainty. It doesn't like new things, because new is unknown. It doesn't like unknown, things that are unknown. So it will try to keep you away from it. So that's why it has to create stories. If I have time, I'll tell you a story I was telling one of the ladies I was coaching yesterday. She couldn't stop laughing. She ended up on the floor. But that's the part. If we have time, remind me, I'll tell you at the end. So the brain literally is just trying to keep us safe. So under pressure, if your thoughts are not trained, your emotional brain will take over. That Amy takes over. When Amy takes over, the first thing she does is that she takes oxygen from the thinking brain. And then if it's not enough, she goes to the body and starts taking from the intestinal tract. And that's why you start feeling those anxious in your tummy. And if you still, consistently, still stay under this pressure, quite critically, you might find you wet yourself, because it goes to your bladder. It goes to the places you don't need the actual organ to function properly. You don't need, when you're in danger, it's not we that you're thinking about. It's survival. It's running. For example, if a rat comes in here, I'm out. I'm leaving you guys here. You know what I mean? My brain goes run. So it's that flight or freeze that kicks in at that point. And that's the threat. So we need to exit. So what happens is that it takes oxygen from your thinking brain, and that's why you can study really hard for an interview, get in there and forget everything. Literally forget. It happened to me. Forgot everything. By the time I came out, before I got into the lift, all the answers come and I'm going, what happened? Nervousness. And that was Amy at work. So it really stops you from thinking. You could lose your temper, say things, and then suddenly go, where did that come from? Came from your subconscious brain. Came from what's in memory. Because when you have a thought, it creates an emotion, and that emotion is what enables you carry out an action. Because what happens is that the Amy, as you're getting into that flight or freeze, it takes oxygen to your muscles so that you can run, fight, or you freeze. But all of them are muscle activated. It's action. So you're doing something or not doing anything. And that's why sometimes you feel stuck. Literally, you can't do what you want to do. You sit in bed. You know you need to go and write a CV, but you don't. That's it. That's your Amy at work. So what we need to do is to really learn how to train our thought patterns. And one of the things that I really want us to focus on is that most women don't lack capability. We're talking of giving. That's important to give and take action. If you don't train your brain, you could have the intention of giving, the intention of taking action, but you find that you're not actually doing it. And one of the things that Amy does so well, it will get you to put it off. Later. You need more training. Not now. You're not ready. And it gives you a lot of narratives that will keep you from doing what you know you need to do. So most women don't lack capability. They lack trained emotional and behavioral responses in those critical moments that you need your prefrontal cortex to make a decision. So you know what to do, but your emotions override your clarity. You have the answer, but you find yourself second-guessing yourself. Should I do this? Is it the right thing to do? You're ready, but your inner state holds you back. That's Amy at work. So what we need to do is to learn to rewire our brain. Why do I talk about rewiring the brain? Because in the brain, we have neurons, which are the brain cells. They connect to each other. So when information comes in, it's coming into the neural network and transferring. So if you look at the brain, unfortunately, I thought I was going to be able to show you a PowerPoint presentation, because you see the neurons of a newborn child all lying individually. And as time goes on, they get to 6 months, 2 years, you see them connecting. What the child hears, what they see, what they experience, all forms these networks. And then as you get older, if it's repeated over time, the networks get stronger. And that, there was a time that they used to teach us that the way your brain is at the age of 25 is the way it stays for the rest of your life. Now we know that that's not true. You can keep changing these neural networks all your life. You can create new ones. I had an argument with a doctor a while ago. He said, no, you can't create new brain cells, because that was what was taught. But you can, all your life. It might be a bit more difficult because you've created some strong networks, but you can. You can change anything. You can create a new response, a new behavior. But it's repetition that rewires the brain. You have to start, and you have to keep rewiring. So the first thing is to train your brain. Because if you don't lead your thoughts will lead you. Like I said, information comes into the brain, and then it get, the amygdala scans it. The hippocampus that sits next to it goes, okay, I know what this is. This is something that happened before. So we can connect it, it stores it in memory, then it goes into your subconscious and sits there. And over time, that's what creates your beliefs, your values, your self-worth, your cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, all are there. So when things then happen, it comes up. And maybe you've gone for an interview and got rejected. When you want to apply next time, it tells you, you want to get rejected again? Don't apply yet. Wait, don't do. Maybe you need more training. Not now. And you're not ready. It's only doing its job to keep you safe. But that's why I said, ask the question. And that's why that concept of why is so important. Why am I applying for this job? Why do I need? In fact, there's a lady I'm working with that is in that situation. She knows she needs to apply, but she's not doing it. Why? I'm scared. Fear is a big one. Fear of rejection, that's being told no. And then we have to come back to, okay, if you don't want to do it, then stay where you are. No, I don't want to stay where I am. So why do you want to move? That why. I say, write it down, paste it everywhere in your room, in your house, the why. Because the more you see it, it starts wiring. That's the why. It starts wiring in your brain. The more you see that why, so that it then enables you to start doing that thing that your brain is telling you not to do. And I said to her, stop waiting to feel like doing it. Do it. You are in control, because if you leave your brain to lead you, it will, but not where you want it to go. And I always say self-awareness is not enough. You must train your thinking to return to the clarity that you want. The second thing is to train that emotional regulation or emotional response. So, and this is where emotional intelligence becomes important. Like I said, when I got into neuroscience, understanding amygdala was the key for me. Because when you understand the emotional center of the brain, that is emotional intelligence, because it's now being intelligent about that emotional brain, understanding how the emotional brain works and how to regulate it, how to manage it so it doesn't manage you, because it will, and it's so powerful. So emotional intelligence is really being able to manage that thought, because you see, the brain and body are so interconnected that when you have a thought, you feel the emotion in your body. And one thing I want you to take away today is emotions are information. It's information. It's telling you something. The question is, what is it telling you? And that's what you need to then use to do what you need to do. So, under pressure, do you pause or do you react? When you react, you're reacting from your emotional brain. But when you respond, where are you responding from? Spot on, your prefrontal cortex, your cognitive brain. You're being intentional. But when you react, it's coming from memory. It's coming from what's stored in the brain. So you need to get into that habit of learning to be in control. Power is not about how much you feel. It's about how well you manage how you feel. How well you manage how you feel. So that emotions don't control you. You control them. The last thing is train your behavior. Because your brain does not recognize your goals. I do a goal setting session, in fact we call it RISE, in my women's community every year. Because every year everybody starts writing goals. And that's such a wrong way to go about goal setting. Because it's so contrary to the way the brain works. Your brain does not recognize goals. It recognizes your repetition. And emotional intelligence, I always say, is not just awareness. It's your behavior under pressure. What comes out when you're under pressure? That's the key. What you repeat is what you become known for. There's a saying, you don't see the world the way it is. You see it the way you are. You see it the way you're wired. You see it from your subconscious memory. That's how you see the world. So two people can be in the same place, experience the same thing, but experience it differently. After all, we're all here, and I called out different words. Everyone heard it differently. If we look at what everyone wrote, it would be in different sequences. So, but we're all in the same place. The list went as, the same list you had, but you all heard it differently. The way your brain processes things is so different. So, I'm going to round up now and say, so one of the things I want you to just do is think of one moment where you knew what to do, but didn't do it. Which one do you want? Just one. Think of one. And ask the question, what actually stopped you? Was it your ability or lack of? Or was it Amy, your internal state that stopped you? So that gap is where emotional intelligence must be trained. That gap. But most of the time, people stop at that gap. They stop there because I don't feel like. Feel is information. I don't feel like, it feels too hard. Uncomfortable. Uncomfortability is growth. It's learning. Embrace it. But most times we push it away or we run away from it. So give to gain is not just about what you give externally. It's actually about what you build internally. Very important. It's about, because actually what you give to your thinking, what you give to your emotional intelligence, what you give to your daily practices determines what you're able to give to the world. Because it starts from what's going on in your brain. So you don't need more confidence. You need better training. You don't need more opportunities. You need a different approach or be able to respond differently when the opportunities come. I have a client who, was telling me about a role she wanted. She was in HR. She wanted to get into this role. We went through everything. She was ready. I think it was an HR business partner. I can't remember, but it was one of those top, director level. And an opportunity came. She was telling me about it. I said, but there's a training I've just registered to do that. Once I do that, I'll be ready. I said, okay, tell me about this training. She did. And I said, okay, bring out that list we wrote the last time about all the things that make you ready for this role. She brought it. And then I said, okay, look at the training you're going for. Who should be training? You going to learn, or will you be the one teaching them? She went, I'm ready, aren't I? Yeah. She applied for it and she got it. But can you see how the brain almost kept her? Because it was different, it was new, it was uncomfortable. So it comes with the procrastination, self-sabotage to keep you away. So if you want to give more impact, train your thoughts. Rewire. Start rewiring your brain. If you want to give stronger leadership, train your emotional responses. And if you want to give greater results, repeat the behaviors to move you forward to where you want to be. Because the woman you're becoming is built from what you practice every day. every day. And it's doing it over and over. So, for the women that want to go deeper into this work in a more relaxed and supportive environment, like I said, I run a women's network called Mindsight Women's Network. Come have a chat and I can tell you more about it. And also, I brought along some books that I talked about where I've been able to combine science, emotional intelligence, and scripture. 366 days, so it's a page a day, so don't worry about the depth. It's because it's 366 days and a lot of reference. I had, like I said, I'm a researcher, so the references are about 10 pages at the back, honestly. So there are a lot of references, but it's one page a day, and it's 366 days. You can also get it on Amazon, but if you want a signed copy, I've got some today. But this book is your personal coach. It's like, there are 12 sections: relationship, leadership, goal setting, become limitless, emotional intelligence unlocked. There are 12 sections, letting go of the past. Everything is there. It literally goes through imposter syndrome, everything. It would really be a blessing to you and to everyone, because one of the things we really need to embrace is that concept of, this is my brain and I am going to be in control because it's mine. Why leave it to control me? Because the fact is that the information it has is coming from everywhere else. Media, upbringing, culture. But the question is it really what you believe? Because most times you find, I do this training with some physicians every year. We have a hospital rolling thing with them. And at the end, they come and say, you know what? I actually went into medicine because my parents told me to. I'm not even sure it's what I wanted to do. And then you start having that conversation about, okay, now you're doing it. Let's now look at if it's really where you want to be. Or what aspect. In fact, some of them, after doing the training, they end up going into different areas. Maybe not leaving medicine completely, but instead of being clinical, they kind of go into different areas of where they can use it. Some go, yeah, this is what I want to do. But it's just so important because most times we just do things because it's what is expected. And the question then is, in fact, there's a day there that says, who am I? And it's a good question to ask ourselves. So thank you, because if you leave me, I'll go on for still I will start. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.